Hi guys, the last thing we're going to do about fractions is calculating the percentage increase or decrease. Usually this will be asked in a word problem or just normal like you'll see in the examples. What I did on the first page, I gave you the steps that you're going to follow when you calculate this. The steps aren't going to make sense to you now, so I'm not going to go through it now. But as soon as we've done the examples, it's going to make sense to you. I just wanted to put it on one page so it's easy for you to access when you do the exercise. So let's jump in right to the examples. Okay, first thing they're going to do is they're going to give you two numbers and they say there was an increase or a decrease from 5 to 2 and you must calculate the percentage. Now, the first thing you ask yourself is this an increase or a decrease? And how you know that is, does the number become bigger or does the number become smaller? What I usually do is I just go and make a little arrow for myself to show myself whether it's an increase or a decrease. So 5 to 2, the number becomes smaller, so we are working with a decrease. The number becomes smaller. The next thing we have to do is we have to work out the difference between the original number and the new number. So I want to know how much did it decrease. So to work that out, I'm going to say 5 minus 2, and my answer is 3. Now I have to write it as a fraction. When I write it as a fraction, my original number that I had becomes my denominator, and the difference between the two becomes my numerator. In other words, out of the 5, I got 3 less. Okay, so that is where that fraction comes from. And then we learned how to make it a percentage. We're going to times by 100 over 1. So over here, 5 goes into that once, 5 goes into that 20 times. 3 times 20 is 60, 1 times 1 is 1. So my answer is 60%. But in your answer, you also have to write that it is a decrease, because that will form part of your question. So you're going to get 1 mark for the percentage, and then to tell me whether it was an increase or a decrease. With the rest of the examples, what I want you to do is look at the example, go and try it on your own, pause the video, and then go back and do it with me. Or in other words, mark what you've done. So look at my example, pause the video, quickly do it on paper, and then mark it with me while I'm going through it. Okay, so my next example is 20 to 25. I can see that this is a increase because my second number is bigger. Now I want to know what the difference between them is. 25 minus 20. The difference between them is 5. Okay. Now I go and write my fraction. My original number is 20. So 20 will be my denominator. The difference between the two was 5. So 5 will be my numerator. Now I'm going to times it by 100 over 1. 20 goes in there once. 20 goes in there 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 1 times 1 is 1. So my answer is going to be 25%. But then I have to tell them that it was an increase. That has to form part of your answer. Okay, let's look at the next example. 40 to 32, that is a decrease. It becomes less. 40 minus 32 equals to 8. When I write my fraction, my original number was 40. The difference between the two is 8. And then I times it by 100 over 1. 20 goes into 40 twice. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 8 times 5 is 40. 2 times 1 is 2. 40 divided by 2 is 20% is my answer. And I saw that it was a decrease, which has to form part of your answer. Okay, last example. 200 to 120. It becomes less, so I'm working with a decrease. 200 minus 120 equals to 80. Okay, so when I write my fraction, 200 is my original number, so that's my denominator, and 80 is going to be my numerator, times by 100 over 1. 100 goes in there twice, 100 goes in there once. 80 times 1 is 80, 2 times 1 is 2. 80 divided by 2 is 40%, and we saw in the start that it was a decrease. Okay, just going to show you where the steps come in. First of all, I see whether it's an increase or a decrease. I do that by seeing if the number becomes smaller or bigger. In this case, it becomes smaller, so we are working with a decrease. Then I go and work out the difference between the original number and the second number, and that is the difference. When I write this fraction, the original number becomes my denominator, and the difference between the two becomes my numerator. Then I times it by 100 over 1 to work out the percentage, and my answer I have to write the percentage and whether it was an increase or a decrease. Okay, please complete the exercise in your books and go back to the video if you get stuck. Thanks, guys.